The legacy media's Biden cover-up is collapsing as the new alternative media triumphs. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. This one is going to make you feel so good. So good! But it's true. We're going to look at the efforts of the mainstream media stooped to bury the sexual assault allegations against Biden and how the alternative media's persistent investigation has blown the lid off the media's cover-up so that now everyone is talking about it. It's going to absolutely make your day. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Super happy May to each and every one of you. If you are looking for a daily white pill of encouragement to help you counter all the ridiculous fake news that's out there from our corporatist globalist media, well, then you have found your daily oasis. We analyze current events in light of some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. So you know what to do if you haven't already done so. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel where you get to interact with and network with conservatives from all over the world. And you know, I just realized we have not done one of our video chat questions of the day in a while, but today is a perfect day to do it, don't you think? Do you believe that Joe Biden will be the Democratic nominee, or do you believe that the Tara Reade sexual assault allegations are gonna bring him down? Let us know in the comments section below. Do you believe that Joe Biden will be the Democratic nominee, or do you think that these sexual assault allegations are gonna be, that's it, they're gonna knock him down? Because if the media, the mainstream Marxist media, had their way, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. But thank God for the tireless efforts of the alternative media, the new media, because now everyone is talking about it. Now, before we dive in here, I don't know about you, but during this whole lockdown, I started to do things, shall we say, just a little bit differently, right? My old life, like my daily commute to my classroom, it just isn't happening anymore. And I can honestly say I ain't missing the traffic too much, that drive too much. Now, as I'm talking to a lot of people on Zoom, of course, I'm finding that they feel the same way about a lot of things. And they've been recommending apps and TV programs and other ways of making life better, not just now, but on an ongoing basis. And in that same vein, if you've seen the returns on the stock market since the beginning of the year, since the virus hit, it's very clear that the old ways aren't working too well. The Fed is having to, prop up returns. It's pumped trillions of dollars into the system to try and avoid what looks like an inevitable correction. So we have to secure a way to guard our wealth, our savings, our investments. And gold, silver, precious metals, they've proven to be safe haven investments. It's the only investment with appreciating value during economic collapse. So if you're interested in securing your wealth, call our very good friends over at Noble Gold Investments at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. Just click on the link below and visit their website at noblegoldinvestments.com. Make sure to tell them Dr. Steve sent you. You'll be glad that you did. All right, let's dive right in here. Neil Patel over at the Daily Caller has a great piece out today detailing how the deliberate attempt by the legacy media, the mainstream Marxist media, the left-wing activists disguised as journalists, attempted to cover up the Joe Biden sexual assault scandal and has now imploded. They are now, thanks to the triumph of the alternative media, like what we have here on YouTube or on Breitbart or the Gateway Pundit and, of course, the Daily Caller, they have collectively pushed this story forward to the point that the legacy media, the cultural Marxist media, is now being forced to cover it. Now, just to give you an idea of the extent of the efforts that the mainstream media has thus far put into burying this story, Patel documents the dramatic contrast between the legacy media and how they covered they're covering the Biden scandal, and how they covered the comparable allegations against Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Since Tara Reade's allegation that Biden sexually assaulted her in his Senate office came out, Biden has done a total of 19 interviews and has been asked 142 questions. And you ready for this? Not a single one of the 142 questions asked to Biden, not one has he had, that one question has even come close to bringing up the allegation. I mean, this is a presidential campaign year. A woman has come out with at least some significant corroborating evidence that the Democratic candidate, or better, the presumptive Democratic candidate for the presidency, sexually assaulted her And in the course of 19 interviews and 142 questions asked since those allegations were made public, including the formal filing of a police report, I might add, not one single question for this Democratic candidate came close to even broaching the allegations. I mean, gang, if you think this one through, we're dealing with a level of corruption in our corporatist globalist media that's comparable to the so-called news reporting of the Chinese government-controlled led media, which, by the way, our mainstream Marxist media trusts more than they trust our own president. Now, it gets worse. According to the Media Research Center here, in the month after Tara Reade's accusation against Biden, ABC and NBC didn't air anything about it. They didn't so much as utter a single peep about it. And CBS News devoted about a minute to it, 63 seconds to be exact. Now, by contrast, you ready for this? By contrast, in the 12 days after Christine Ford made her allegations against Judge Brett Kavanaugh, those same three networks, you ready for this? They devoted a full 6 hours of their morning and evening news shows to the scandal. 60 seconds of coverage for the Biden accusations, 6 hours for the Kavanaugh. I mean, what objective journalistic standard could even possibly account for such a radical disparity like that? You know, the New York Times they actually tried to justify that blatant discrepancy. The two left-wing activists disguised as journalists who covered the Kavanaugh fiasco and who to this day still defend Christine Ford, who made the allegations against Kavanaugh that were totally bogus, completely fallacious and uncorroborated. These New York Times reporters, who ended up getting a lucrative book deal out of the whole thing, keep in mind, they were asked on Twitter why the New York Times has handled the two stories so radically differently. And why have these two left-wing activists disguised as journalists, why have the reporters remained so silent on the issue with their supposed expertise on the whole Kavanaugh situation? And one of them, Kate Kelly, tweeted out that the two situations were completely different. They had nothing to do with each other, right? You ready for this? According to her, Kavanaugh was a live, these are her words now, Kavanaugh was a live, ongoing story that had become the biggest political story in the country. It was just a different news judgment moment. Actually, she was quoting one of her colleagues there. This is a different news judgment moment. Now, needless to say, such buffoonery like that didn't convince too many people on Twitter. You could read one comment after another, stating the patently obvious to that. The only reason why the Biden story isn't the biggest story in the country is because left-wing reporters have actively been burying it. They have been deliberately ignoring it. I mean, think about it. The presumed Democratic nominee for president, a former vice president, is credibly accused of sexual assault, which is but the latest in a long line of accusations. I believe there were at least 5, as I understand it. But that, for some reason, isn't newsworthy to the New York Times. Yeah, right. Well, these are the same people who try to offer an explanatory justification for why Hillary Clinton is not in jail right now. But needless to say, now, the mainstream Marxist media has obviously done everything they could possibly do to bury these allegations against Biden. And there was a time that they could. But alas, those days are over. The rise of the alternative media, the rise of the new media, has destroyed the monopoly that these cultural Marxist left-wing activists have had on the mediation of information for decades. Now, everywhere you look, people are starting to comment on the Biden allegations. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet. That's the beauty of the network society that we're living in right now, because alternative news outlets are actually doing the reporting and getting this story out there. Anyone is commenting on it. Take a look at my namesake here, Jonathan Turley, who you may remember testified on behalf of Trump and the Republicans before Congress on how pathetic their impeachment case was. And remember, Turley's a liberal, okay? He's a self-proclaimed liberal, but he's an honest one. And he's come out and said, look, Biden needs to open up the archive of his records at the University of Delaware for scrutiny. He's got to do it. Right now, as we speak, Biden is not allowing for that. Biden is not allowing a search to see if Tara Reade's name comes up in his records that are archived at the University of Delaware. And now, if you can believe it, even the leftist Washington Post is coming out and saying publicly that Biden is going to have to answer these allegations. Even President Trump was asked about the Biden allegations at his press conference the other day, and Trump said, yeah, Biden needs to come out and address those allegations firsthand. And so the nightmare has happened. Biden had to come out today on MSNBC's Morning Joe.
Okay, let's bring in the apparent Democratic nominee for president, former Vice President Joe Biden. Mr. Vice President, thank you for coming on the show this morning. We have a lot we want to ask you this morning. Okay. Joe and Willie will join in just a moment for questions on how you would handle this pandemic, the campaign, and other news of the day. But at the start, it's just going to be you and me, and I want to get right to the allegation made against you by Tara Reade. So the former Senate aide accuses you of sexual assault. And please, to our viewers, please excuse the graphic nature of this, but I want to make sure that there is no question as to what we're talking about. She says in 1993, Mr. Vice President, that you pinned her against the wall and reached under her clothing and penetrated her with your fingers. Would you please go on the record with the American people? Did you sexually assault Tara Reade?
No, it is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened. And it didn't. It never happened.
Now, all I can say is that if that's his defense, this Biden show is just getting started. Now, because of the tireless efforts of the alternative media, the mainstream media's cover-up has completely and totally collapsed. Now, everyone is talking about the Biden allegations, which shows you the power of the alternative media, right? It shows us all that a new media is indeed rising that corresponds with this massive shift away from the corporatist globalism of the mainstream media and far more towards a nationalist populist approach to journalism, a citizen journalism, a local journalism of sorts. And with the collapse of the mainstream media's cover-up, it does look like we are seeing nothing less than the triumph of a new age of a rising conservative media that has officially ended decades of left-wing liberal rule. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video on the leftist liberal support for Biden, destroying feminism, and exposing the Me Too movement as a total fraud. You're going to absolutely love it, so make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.